Oh, hello. You caught me reading the art copy of the 5th Stormlight book by Brandon Sanderson, The Dragon's Whistle. Man, is it epic. But not as epic as this 3rd book in the series. Malazan series, Memories of Ice. Now, I'm going to go through some things here. Sorry, that was a stupid joke. But I had that, I made that, this cover for Brandon Sanderson book. Anyway, look how big it is. It's supposed to be about 7,000 pages. All right, so I'm going to go through 16 parts that I thought were so cool in this book, in Memories of Ice, as well as 16 of my favorite characters. But I'm going to cheat by kind of grouping them together a little bit sometimes, because some of the reason why I like one of these characters is because of the people that are around them as well. They all kind of go together, as well as just a general discussion. Now, it's been a few days now since I finished, and I think the last video I did, I was a couple chapters in to the ending of Memories of Ice, or towards the ending, and there were 3 chapters left, I guess, and I really loved it. I really loved the ending, except some of it did go over my head a little bit. I felt like I was really kind of able to finally kind of juggle all the things that were there that I needed to juggle. And I kind of started to stumble a little bit at the end, but I still liked it. I felt a little bit like I was in Gardens of the Moon again. And I think that's kind of a problem that I just generally have. I love context to stories. I love first and second acts, and usually by the 3rd act, like I'm just not as interested. I'm interested in the development, and that's just always been the case for me. I'm more of a history guy, so I mean everything is context there. And I not saying I didn't love the climax, it's just I loved the journey along the way even more than some of the things that happened at the end. But there are some things that really I thought were awesome in this book within all 3 phases of it. So let's get into that. I don't know if I should do my favorite scenes first or my favorite people. I think they're kind of wrapped together in a way. But let's go into I'll start first with my favorite characters. And I'm going to try to speak freely, and so there's going to be some overlap, but I'm not a pro at this, and I prefer just talking rather than having something super highly produced and whatnot, and I kind of ramble, and I hope that's fine with you. Okay, 16 characters that I like, and I did put general thought into this, but there are definitely some that would probably make the list on different days, and the order doesn't matter a whole lot, especially with the first ones. But the top 5 are the ones that are kind of interchangeable, especially, but really any of those could really be the star for me. Now, number 16, I'm going to put Gareth, the pup that is with Lady Envy. Not because I think it's an amazing character by itself, but I'm a dog person, and when Gareth turned into Super 9000 Crazy Gareth and was starting to like rip people up in that Panion Doman temple, that was just so exciting for me. So Gareth, even though didn't do a ton for me, I want more Gareth. I'll always want more Gareth. So he's trending up for me. Now, someone who is trending down for me, and I have them at number 15, is Silverfox. Silverfox, I thought, was going to be the very star of the show. And even though Silverfox still was kind of a center, or one of many centers, really started to trend down. And I think that's by design. Everyone started to kind of go do other things and not really play by Silverfox's rules. And I thought that was interesting because Silverfox is this amalgamation of the Elder Goddess and Tattersail and this plan, which we find out was kind of, you know, well, actually, it wasn't really the plan. I'm trying to think of Lassine's plan, and that was more about having a deck of someone in the deck of dragons again. But anyway, there's a lot that went over my head. With Silverfox, though, not releasing the Talani Mass, even though I thought, well, we kind of still could use them. And really, it's amazing because she's tied into the themes of this book. And again, sorry, this is going to be spoilers if you haven't realized that already. But this is going to be heavy spoilers. Silverfox, I think, is tied into the theme, and where a lot of people were brought down low and kind of would choose their own different kind of path and try to separate themselves from these memories of ice. She would kind of be stuck in that. And because of that, a lot of people kind of did their own thing and started to grow more distant. Now, I think she had a lot of things that I think on another reread down the road, I will see that she had more that she was actually doing. Like with the Maiba, it sounded like she was kind of, to the reader, it sounded like they were kind of growing more and more apart, but she was actually kind of bringing the Maiba, chasing the Maiba in these dreams. I still don't even understand it, but chasing the Maiba towards having the Maiba. I've been saying that over and over and over, but the Maiba being chased by the wolves. That took way too long to say that, to bring them together with Toul. So it's almost like she is there for that. And the people who feel for the Maiba, think of Call and Murillo and Crone and Korlat and Kruppe, but everyone has this other idea of what she could use. And Whiskeyjack, but it sounds like it was kind of disruptive of what Silverfox really was trying to do with her, for better or worse. So that's number 15. Number 14, I have kind of a grouping together. It is Keruli / Krull, and Kruppe is kind of lumped into that. Now, I think they are interesting, and I really like this idea of Krull, and I don't really know what to feel about him even still. I think he's generally a force for good, even though he has this tie with blood. He's obviously done sacrifice and things like that, and I'm more interested in him as I go along, but he's just not a top person for me. Now, number 12 is just on the whole, just for the cool factor. I love the Segulah. I love the Segulah. I love the Segulah even more than I like the Kachane Shamal. Now, I did that short about how much I love these dino guys with the swords. Yes, I think they're cool. I'm a sucker for the Segulah. I love how their hierarchy is set up, and I don't think that means they just go around bullying each other. If they don't see any threat in someone, they just don't even bother. I think it's just so cool. I love the scenes with them sizing up Toul. I can't recall if I have one of those in there, one of those scenes in my top, but I love the Segulah. I think they, you know, they're not super deep as far as I can tell, but very cool. Now, number 11, I have Captain Paran. If it would have been in the first half of the book, I think he would have been higher on my list. I found that his most vulnerable moments were his most interesting. And then, you know, if I had to call anyone a main character in this series, I think I would call him the main character, unless I'm mistaken. Even though there's lots of main characters and lots of people who kind of play a very important role. But I don't think anyone plays a more important role than he does necessarily. But for the second half of the book, you know, I always liked having him around. For me, it's yeah, he's just kind of in the middle of things. He keeps things moving forward, like Quick Ben or some of these other characters. But I don't love Paran, and I don't always love the very main character in a series the most. But he didn't necessarily have any high peaks for me, other than the fact that apparently he can turn into a black wolf, a black hound now, or whatever, which is very cool. All right, number 10. This is going to be Anomander Rake. And really, Anomander Rake first was about the cool factor. In this, I like him more, especially the things that really bump him up on the list for me is, you know, he does make a cool entrance, but it's his respect for Whiskeyjack. And do I have Whiskeyjack coming up here? I think I have Whiskeyjack actually clumped up with someone else. His respect for Whiskeyjack and his respect for the bridge burners. And even by the end, you know, I didn't really care much about the bridge burners in the first book all that much. But in the third book, I really loved them. And I love that, you know, the Tistandi aren't really, they don't have all, it seems like they don't have this major connection with the afterlife. As far as I can tell, they just would let people die, and they just see him as just meat and, you know, something to decay on the battlefield. But to Whiskeyjack, especially after seeing after Whiskeyjack tells him the story. Oh, okay. Honorable mention, that scene. That scene should probably be somewhere. I'm not going to do that now, but that scene where Whiskeyjack tells him the story about Quick Ben and how they kind of became the bridge burners, that would be in my top 10 somewhere, but I'll just put that as an honorable mention. I love that, and I love that the bridge burners are buried in Moonspawn for the time being, something that and seems like they're in a prominent location as well. I really like that. Number 9, Lady Envy. Now, I hate Lady Envy, but she just has that smile, and she's awesome, and she's kind of like this junior high annoying person who just needs to grow up. She's so frustrating, but she's cold. She's cold in all the best ways as well. I love Lady Envy. I hate her, and I love her. You know, I just think there's, I can understand why Anomander Rake just couldn't stand being around this lady anymore, and she just drove him to insanity with her games. Constantly playing games. I think she's a fantastic character that I just can't stand. Okay, number 8, which is actually 2 people. It is Bauchelain and Korbel Broach, but mostly Bauchelain. And I think I have that scene in my top 16. Mostly the scene with Quick Ben and Bauchelain. I love that interaction. That's when I really started to see the cold kind of character of Bauchelain, especially. You know, Korbel Broach is more of this kind of childlike psycho to me, but Bauchelain to me seems more like how sometimes Dracula is depicted, or these really cold bad guys who you just kind of really like before they you know, the scene with Bauchelain and Quickben where they have this drink together. There's this mutual respect, some kind of info going back and forth, but then he lashes out at Quickben. I love Bauchelain. I do know there's some kind of books in that follow them. There's so much potential with that for me. I love the idea of this summoner kind of on the same side with this necromancer. I think that's right. Kind of the one is more of like a summoner and kind of a mage sort of thing as far as I can understand, and the other one is this necromancer who goes around harvesting bodies and murdering people and all that. I think that's an amazing duo with so much potential that I'm looking forward to. Number 7, really quick, Quickben, my main guy who I trust in the series. If there's any Gandalf sort of Dumbledore character like that I just feel like I should trust, I think it's Quickben. Love Quickben. Love his storyline that is kind of set apart from the rest of the book in a lot of ways, but in a way feels more like the center of what we really should be going on and understanding. Oh, that just reminds me of another thing. I'm going to write this down so I don't forget for my top scenes that I want to talk about. Okay. I love Quickben, and he had some of the coolest moments for me, which I will talk about, at least one of them in the next part. But I think everyone loves Quickben, right? Or am I just crazy? Now, where was I? Number 6 is Kallor. I'm a sucker for great villains, and I think this guy, even though he seems one-dimensional in a lot of ways, I like just a classic villain who is just the worst of the worst type guys. I think our introduction to Kallor is amazing. I didn't even recognize Kallor from the Gardens of the Moon. I think he's probably mentioned there, but we don't get a ton about Brood. I kind of didn't really pay attention to Kaladin Brood in the first book, but I'm so into Kallor, and I love his kind of philosophy, or whatever you could call it, his inner dialogue. I think at the end of the 3rd sub-book, where he is like a snake, a serpent ready to strike, just super silent, waiting for his time, and he has a couple times where he's ready to strike. He's kind of like, I don't bow for anyone, I don't kneel for anyone. And then when the Crippled God, through the Herald, says, well, I don't need you to. I am kind of independent of my house of chains, which I want you to be the king of. And that means you can run it how you want. There may be some certain things, but it's, you're going to run it. And I am so interested in that. I don't know if he kind of stays as a villain all the way to the end of the series. I'd be down if that's the case. But I don't know why the Crippled God would choose Kallor, considering there's this curse on him that whatever he gets his hands on will eventually crumble. So that seems like major foreshadowing for the rest of the series, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the last 5 people, I kept swapping them. I basically did some variation, a ton of variations on these top 5, and eventually I just decided, doesn't really matter. I like all 5 of these characters for different reasons. You probably have a different order. I am sure that at least a couple of these are in your top. as well, probably. And my number 5, at least for today, is Itkovian. I like Itkovian a lot. If there were moments that made me kind of well up emotionally, Itkovian was one of them. He had a lot of them. And even though I like what he does in taking on the despair of the Talani Mass, and I love Itkovian as kind of being the other side of the Crippled God in some ways, kind of taking on people's despair. I love that scene with Rathfenner, and I will talk about that more. I love how he kind of takes on the despair of Capistan and the Talani Mass and Anister, but I think I want to save that for the next part. But I love the scene with the Rev, and I love, well, I guess I'll say it right now, I love what he sees in people when no one else can see anything. And you know, justice must be served if you do these awful things, but I love that he will take all this on himself when no one else is there to take on his burden, and he's willing to do that. And especially what he takes on for the Talani Mass, and what that kind of means for him. I don't know, does that mean he's in some sort of limbo now with despair? Oh, I gotta remember now. I gotta remember this scene. I'm remembering more and more scenes. I'm going to write down, holy smokes, and this should be an honorable mention right at the, it might be a top 5 scene that I forgot. It's the funeral of Itkovian. I can't believe I forgot about that. Okay, I'm going to put that on there. All right, so I love Itkovian. Now, number 4, I have the Crippled God. And I just think he wraps into the theme so well. I like that he just kind of plays with his food. I like that he preys on people's most vulnerable moments. I think we've seen that in a lot of books. I think we've seen that before, but I think thematically he is the way he is kind of the way he's able to turn good people into something else through kind of some poor decisions and things like that he kind of convinces them to make. I think he's a great villain. I think he's someone to finally point at and say, yeah, that's the bad guy in the series. There might be lots of sort of bad guys that he uses as tools, but that's the bad guy in the series. All right. Number 3, and this one was so hard because I actually had this one number 1. I think by the end of the series, this could be really up there for me, unless there's a whole bunch of new characters from the rest of the series that I don't know yet. But this one kind of creeped up on me. This one slowly, if Silverfox slowly kind of went down, this person kind of just consistently went up, and I didn't really give her much attention until finally, midway through this book, I thought, I love this character, and it is Korlat. Now, Korlat's the one that I'm most looking forward to getting back to for the rest of the series at some point. I hope she's a main part of the series going forward. Somewhere. She didn't do a lot of major explosive things that made me suddenly like her, but I just liked her voice of reason. I think she is a strong character. I think she brings out the best in a lot of people. I think as she is connected with Whiskeyjack, I think she's just a top tier, amazing character. Let me think of anything else. I think, and she's one of these Tistandi, but she kind of is apart from them in a lot of ways. She has a little bit more of a soft spot that reminds me more of the Rivi people. I think she's amazingly vulnerable. She's chosen Whiskeyjack but has this vulnerable side, thinking I'm not good enough for Whiskeyjack, which I think is silly because she's clearly awesome. And I think she's trustworthy. She's another one like Quick Ben that I would want on. She's one of the ones that I think I can trust to do the right thing going forward. Now, number two. Number two is Gruntle. But I've also include Stonny and Buke. And I think probably what a lot of us think going through in this story, we think, well, this Gruntle guy is kind of boring. Doesn't really care what happens with this person. I kind of put Gruntle in the same sort of category as Picker. Didn't really care until the moment where things really switch for him. Now, I have to add Stonny and Buke for Gruntle because I don't think you have Gruntle without these other two characters, especially Stonny. Now, Buke, I want to give him his credit because he's really a side character, but at least it seems like in this first book. But Buke is a character who was brought down low and pulled himself out of it. He could have reached that low point and then just coasted until he died or just became a shell of who he was. He really had some trauma. And he kind of plants some of a seed in Gruntle to change things. And he definitely does. But that scene with Stonny that we'll talk about, I think. That scene with Stonny where she's raped and he kind of takes her in and he's this fatherly kind of presence now for her, and he's able to rally everybody with this rage that is in him, and he is changed, and the people that he rallies as well are changed. They have something to fight for, and they fight like tigers, and then they kind of become tigers, right? They become one tiger. I really love Gruntle. Looking more forward to him. I think he still could be, I trust Gruntle, but I think he's a little bit of a loose cannon still. But I really love Gruntle. Now, my last two is Toul. I still love Toul, I think, the most. And I love Toc. I think I love Toc, but I only love Toc because I love Toul. And I think I love Toul as well because I love Toul's sister. And I think they all kind of wrap in. Spoiler alert, I love the last scene with Toc and Toul. I was so worried about losing my favorite little friendship in this book. I will talk about that scene soon. But it was, I love it. And if the rest of the books, the rest of the 7 books are the Toc and Toul show, hey, I'm here for it. All right, going into my favorite scenes, and I'll try to go a little bit quicker because I know I've already kind of rambled a little bit too much. Now, I mentioned the funeral of Itkovian. So I'll put this just in an honorable mention because I already have it laid out. But really, the funeral of Itkovian, I think, is like a top 3 for me, which I can't believe I forgot. Everyone putting something of them, giving something of them to Itkovian and making a barrow out of him so that he won't be forgotten. I love when this recruit who he gave his helmet to shows up and wants to give it, but the Destriant says, I think it was the Destriant, says, no, he wanted you to have it. But eventually he does leave that there. And the Talani Mass each leaves something. I can't recall what Paran leaves. But it's a really special moment. Really special moment. I loved it. Next honorable mention, I will mention the wrap-up of using the Omtos Falak to kind of be like a cold pack for Burn. Slowing down the Crippled God, at least for a while, even though it still is kind of, it hasn't been wrapped up. We don't know Brood's kind of third option yet. to fix it. We don't, Quick Ben is still working on things. Really thought that was great. The last honorable mention, I will mention the last battle, which I think was exciting and great. I didn't like it as much as the Capistan thing. I sort of didn't follow everything, but we had warrens being used to put water into people's lungs. We had fiery boulders. We had Brood standing with the hammer, wondering where Anomander Rake was, and da-da-da-da. Really cool. Number 16 scene, though, of what I thought was really cool, and that was Anomander Rake showing up at the big meeting outside, before, with Paran there and Whiskeyjack and everyone, showing up as a dragon, and there's Cloud, and then out of the cloud there's Anomander Rake, and then him showing up with Moonspawn. A little dramatic. Could have probably shown up earlier, but I like his entrances just for the cool factor. Another thing for the cool factor that just surprised me was the number 15 is the caravan group who's handling kind of the wares and things and keeping the army supplied. This caravan group kind of blasting out of that warren, and then the blood all coming out, and that's when you start to really realize how bad this infection is and what it means for all of these other warrens. There's these demons that wanted to just hitch a ride just to get out of there, and I love this group. Really, they could be, I probably should swap them up above the Segulah in the group that I like. This caravan group made up of high mages. I'm looking forward to more with them. Really looking forward to more with them. Number 14, the first moments we get with the Chain Shamal just totally were awesome, and I will just leave that there. Number 13, Quick Ben going to the Crippled God and then getting sucked into the ground. That's what really compelled me to do videos about Malazan in the first place, and to do this to go through Memories of Ice. It was that scene. I stopped right there. I went back to the start of the book and highlighted a whole bunch of things because I thought, okay, I'm into something that I'm really, really, really liking. That was just a cool factor for me. But then when you see the giants holding up and Burn is kind of melting away, there's this infection going, that scene just drew me in. Number 12, it's the fight that Trott has with this younger Barghast. I love that character. He could be an honorable mention as well. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't be dead, because I just thought he had the total swag about him and he almost took out Trott with this knife and then his fingers to the throat. That was one of the coolest fight scenes. Really cool. I love John Gwyn's fight scenes. He has really good close quarters stuff. That one gives the John Gwyn's close quarters fight scenes a run for its money. Really, really cool. And, Steven Erikson does write amazing fight scenes as well. Number 11, I've already brought this up. Quick Ben having this confrontation with Bauchelain and Korbel. But it's also as Quick Ben is using the warrens to kind of sneak into the place. I love that he uses the warren of stone. He kind of is in the wall of stone between the... using that as if he's transferring through water. The mortar kind of makes it hard. I like that he releases this demon who is his last... He has this thing where if anyone releases him, he's supposed to snap out at or lash out at whoever does that. Or whoever releases him. Number 10. I can't remember what scene this is, but it is the concept of the Panian Daemon as this this thing that is not self-sustaining, but basically has to eat to survive, or has to burn So it doesn't have this core at the middle of it. It doesn't have any light at the middle of it. It just spreads and consumes things at the perimeter and leaves just devastation, like a fire in its wake. And it's just devastation at the perimeter. I think that's really great. I think that something that would be self-sustaining. A part of the reason why the ancient Romans were so good at they were who they were for a long time. Now, yes, they had awful things they did, which we don't. There lots of awful things, but really at the core of what they did that made them able to sustain for a long time. And the same with the Mongols, maybe even more so with the Mongols in a lot of ways, is they had this ability to administrate, and sometimes the Romans did try to improve these cities that they went to, provide water and elevate some of the living conditions through sanitation and things like that. Really bring them from an older world into a newer world for them, really a modern world. But the Panian Dahmen just eats and just doesn't have that heart. So eventually it is just a scourge to wipe out the continent, wipe out the world. I think that's amazing. I loved that scene and reading about that. Number 9 is Munnig and his meeting with the Crippled God. It is short, but in those 2 or 3 pages, I think it perfectly paints a picture of the type of menace that we're dealing with. Really loved that part. I loved the fight in number 8 where Kallor finally strikes. Sees Silverfox coming down kind of on her own and finally strikes, and Whiskeyjack gets in the way, and he had this bum leg that didn't get fixed that broke when he does that lunge towards Kallor and would have had him. And then Tayshrin shows up and does this gold warren-y thing, almost taking him, and Kallor blinks out of there or whatever he does. I thought that scene was very cool from the finale. Tayshrin is back. I knew this Artanthos guy was someone, but I would have never thought that it was Tayshrin. I'm looking forward to getting more from Tayshrin because I just didn't like Tayshrin from the first book. And man, I'm looking forward to more of that. Number 7, and this probably could be even further up the list. I don't know if it would be on everyone's list. It is Quickben and Paran paying their respects to the fallen bridge burners who are entombed in Moonspawn. I love that Trott is there, this Barghast. And remember, the Barghast are very much traditional with how they do things. But he's a bridge burner by choice. And when he was in that fight with that Barghast kid, he chose the way of the bridge burners. That was his clan. That's who he considers his clan. I want to go back to Gardens of the Moon and read it again, just to read about the bridge burners, because I don't think I really connected with them a lot the first time, but I really have connected now, and I love that as they're leaving, Paran kind of turns back and gives his blessing to them in that whatever kind of weird way that it works when he just speaks it out. And as the shadow is kind of coming together, that's when there's like a little bit of mysterious light or something, which makes me think I think if I had to guess, we're not done with the bridge burners, or those bridge burners at least. The rest of the bridge burners are in Darujistan or something, just making a name for themselves, and You know, I think Kaladin Brute said, I'll just say that you died so that Lysine stops chasing you. But I think we're not done with the bridge burners, if I had to guess. I'm not really holding out hope for that, but that would be very cool. And we know that people can kind of be not resurrected, but they kind of inhabit another person. Maybe they'll turn into one big whatever. Who knows? Who knows what Steven Erikson has planned for them? If he did anything for them, maybe everyone's like, you know what happens. But I'm really excited to see if anything happens with them. Number 6, it is the Rev with Rathfenner. I love that Itkovian, yes, he sees this betrayal that had major impact, but I love that in doing this embrace, he can see from his earliest moments where Rathfenner was a well-intentioned priest, but it was this thrall and this environment he was in that really was starting to slowly kind of corrupt him and take him down this path. Many small little turns towards that kind of way of being. Instead of one massive kind of thing he did, it was lots of slow, steady things. And I think that probably the Crippled God preys on that kind of stuff as well. I loved that Itkovian doesn't just see the end of what Rathfenner became, but he can also see that. He can see the humanity in him, and he can also see that this Rathfenner does hold on to this guilt. The same with an Anaster or an Aster has this same sort of thing where we see what he became, but he's holding on to all this stuff. He's had a traumatic sort of upbringing. I love that part. Number 5 is just another cool factor for me. I was so excited to get to the Panian Daemon, and the first real experience we have of them is in the temple with Lady Envy and Toc is freaking out. The Segulah are there. I love when Toc wakes up and it's just craziness going on. I kind of picture it as being dark, this kind of red glow, just yelling, and it's just a really, really cool scene. Just for the cool factor, really, for me. Awesome. And I did love that in this book that there are lots of kind of groups of people going all over the place and doing their own thing. I appreciated that for Lady Envy and them, even though I didn't understand all of their motivations, it was something simple to kind of just, it was interesting. It was a nice diversion from the other plots going on that were maybe forcing me to kind of juggle more things. It kind of was a little bit of a nice breather whenever I got to Lady Envy and them. Number 4 is a lot of scenes. It is the concepts of people trying to help the Maiba. And specifically, I just loved the scene where Whiskeyjack finally gets through to her. She's struggling with these dreams that are exhausting and resentment, and she sees this death under her, and he says, you know, that could be more of a projection of what you are feeding it. Don't feed it anymore. And she's upset with him, and he leaves, but he's kind of planted that seed, which was good. I think a lot of people tried to reach the Maiba. I think Whiskeyjack is fantastic, as I have mentioned, and I think I sure hope we haven't seen the total end of him, even though I think we have. But I really loved that scene. I loved that scene, as well as when Crone first tried to help the Maiba. I loved that. I loved it. Number 3 is in the prologue. I loved the 3 elder gods, Draconis, Krull, and the women of, what was her name? sister of Cold Knights, who is the elder goddess. I loved when they come together and they are shocked by what they see. It gives us this introduction to Kallor. I love how it sets this precedent for the rest of the book, and how Kallor can kind of see this elder goddess in Silverfox. I love that whole kind of storyline, but it all starts with that part in the prologue, and I was all in. I was all in for that. Number 2 favorite scene. And this is kind of a cool factor thing as well, and it's really tied up in a lot of what happens with Gruntle. I love that. I love his transformation. I love where it goes from in Capistan, his transformation after Stonny has as she's victimized, and then really goes out, and then he shows this group of people in Capistan who aren't going to fight. They're all relying on the gray swords. He says, look what they have done to this child who's been half eaten, and uses that banner, and it just lights a fire in these people. And they are, thank goodness for that. I love when they go up and they defend this building. They are like this last pillar of light to defend the city, and that's through Gruntle. I also love, for the cool factor, that as they're marching towards this final battle, they finally kind of, like fuse together like this reverse divers into this massive tiger. And as it is chopped away at, the people kind of fly out of it. I think thematically that is very cool. I think of that movie, The Patriot, with Mel Gibson, and there's the regular fighting forces, but then he rallies people together like this militia to have something really to fight for. His transformation goes from kind of nothing to this flashpoint, much like Gruntle. And I think that's just great. I think that was a standout for me in this book. Now, my very favorite scene in this book was when I thought Toul and Toc were dead and gone, and I was sad and very upset, thinking, how am I going to go on in this series? Now Toc is this mortal sword within the body of that child of the first seed, Anister. He's no longer a shell. And he's this mortal sword of the wolves. I really am into this idea of the gray swords, and I like Trake, as they are kind of the main deal right now, but this wolf kind of group is really interesting with him at the center. And I love that someone comes and kind of shakes his hand, and that person kind of sees who Toc really is, and Toc with this wolf eye sees that this flesh and blood person who got hacked away at, this Barghast, I think it was, there's something about him that he recognizes in the walk, and we know that is Toul, and he's been changed, that made me so excited. I'm so excited to see what happens with that. I hope that's not, I wouldn't think that would be the end of it, but that was just my single favorite moment of this last book. There were a lot of favorite moments that were exciting, but it was the quiet moments and the thematic moments that I think I loved the most. Now, I'm also seeing some themes in House of Chains that I think I'll talk about soon. It's been slow moving. I'm only in the second chapter. I haven't been able to do that every day. I've been a little bit sick and having some other things to do. But I like where the theme is, and it's a little bit different than Memories of Ice. The characters, I think, are interesting, very flawed. I think of You can't see it probably down there. I have Conan. It kind of reminds me of that. But lots to talk about. I loved this book. I really liked it a lot. It's a top 3 for me, for sure. My very favorite books, I think if I had to say, I'm a sucker for The Count of Monte Cristo. That's in there somewhere. I love Dracula and Frankenstein or other ones, but this one, if not above those two, would be right in the mix. I really loved this book. I give it a 5 out of 5. If there's things that I missed, let me just quickly, I had some notes. Let me just quickly scan through to see if there's anything that I should kind of bring up. Yeah, we have with Dragnapur that Anomander Rake, when they went into the sword, Dracona said, no, Dragnapur needs to eat and take more souls for the time being. We can't shatter it quick, but it is what is keeping back chaos. That was like go time for, yeah, I thought that was really cool. I think I've mentioned most of the things. Kind of sad that we've lost so many people like Whiskeyjack and the Bridge Burners. Interested in seeing what's going to happen with the Tistandi. And I'm interested in the Tist Edur, I think they're called, like the more gray ones. Really interested in knowing more about them. I think if I had things that I'm most looking forward to, I want to know what happens with them, kind of what their deal is. I want to see Paran doing more with that. I want to see if there's more people who, I want to see more ascendants who come. I'm hoping Korlat is more and more a part of things. I hope the Bridge Burners are back. I want Toul and I want Toc and Toul to just be at the center of a lot of things. I'm looking forward to getting back to 7 Cities as well. Let me just look to see if anything else I've missed. I'm sure there's a lot of things. And leave them down below. If there's things that you think I've missed that meant a lot to you, I will respond to you in I see my notes that I was so upset when I thought Toc and Toul were dead. Last thing I'll mention, I'm excited that did I miss mentioning that I love... I think number 13 character I liked. The Knight of Death. I thought he was cool. I want to see more of the Knight of Death. And the last thing, I'm excited that this Duker, however you say his name, Duker, that was crucified at the end of Deadhouse Gates. I am so glad that it appears that he's back. He was one of my top 3 characters from Deadhouse Gates that I really loved, this historian, and I'm looking forward to getting more with him, hopefully. All right, and I know I've missed some things, but I will see you on the next one. Thanks.